Hello, good morning. We are back with part 3 of the big boiler move. Today's going to be the most sketchy part of this whole operation. We've got to get it down on the dolly, which means lifting it up and suspending it. So let's get on and see what happens. So carrying on from last week, we managed to get our makeshift axles underneath the boiler. That went without a fight. In the end, we had to lift it up on his end. We couldn't. There wasn't enough room to get round the backside with it, so we had to lift it up on his end and basically drive it up over the surface table, and we got it just about under the boiler. We then come across the issue that the boiler was just 5mm too low to get the last tyre under, so we had to pull out the big jack. And what we've done is we just lifted it up, jacked it up with a 35-ton jack at the front, which in turn got it high enough off the ground that we was able to just push it under, just persuade the axles under with the forklift truck. Be very careful not to knock the boiler in the process. We don't want to roll this off its stand at this point. It would make it easier if it was down on the ground, but I don't know how much damage we'd do getting it there. So what we've done is we've got the axle pushed in underneath, as you can see, and now we're ready to go with the rocking it down and getting it fixed to its little dolly. So let's get on with today's work. So this is what we got to lift it today. This is a 40-ton per metre crane mounted on a tractor unit. Should be able to sneak that in the front, same as we done last time, and that should give us enough lift to get one end done. We can't lift the whole boiler with this, but we can lift one end. So I'm going to show you how we're going to go about lifting the whole boiler if we can only access and lift one end, and to lower it down onto its platform. So the nice thing about doing it with this crane is we've got this remote, so I can be far enough away from that boiler that if it rolls off, I'm not going to get flattened. I'll still end up dead because it'll probably hurt the crane and my old man will kill me, but we can at least not do it with a boiler. So I've got a sweet little model me son's made, so we could do a little bit of a demonstration of how this is supposed to go. So let's do that. Right, so with a little bit of help from me young lad, I've got this super sweet scale model, exact scale replica of what we got behind with the boiler. So as you can see, at the minute, the boiler is resting up on some blocks, and the dolly is floating underneath. In an ideal world, we put a strap round here, pick the boiler up and drop it down on the dolly, but we can't do that in our situation. So what we're planning on doing, there's me for scale, is I'm hoping if we're able to lift, let's turn the boiler around, if only it was that easy. So if we can lift the front of this boiler with the crane, which we know we can do because we've done that before, we should be able to insert some cribbing, some wood, some blocks, something along them lines, take out some of the blocking at the front, and then let that front down. And as that front goes down, you can see the back end's going to come up, which in turn means we can pull some tyres out the rear, because he's resting on tyres at the back at the minute, and then we can lift up on the front, pull our cribbing out or lower it down until we end up on the dolly, and then we can just drag that dolly out with the boiler on it to our new location. So that is basically simply what we're going to be trying to do. Whether it's going to end up like that, we'll have to find out. But Luckily with the crane remote I can stay well away. There's a few things that could go wrong. The main thing I'm worried about is, as we're lifting up the front, if we go too high, she could slip off the back and roll down that way. That's the only really thing I'm worried about. There's another thing that could happen is as we're lowering it down onto the cribbing, she could want to roll sideways, so we're gonna have to just watch out for that. But yeah, I mean, we'll just take it as it goes and see what happens. So that's the plan. Let's see if it goes to plan. Let's crack on. We just want to get this out of the way so it doesn't foul the wheels. Should have bought my cowboy hard hat.
Dig in once you get flat.
axles. We are down on the axles, but she's got a bit of a belly to her. That should be all the weight. Well, I feel a lot better about it being closer to the ground now, anyway. So if we go back up now, and then we'll block that axle out further, so it's not resting on the middle, because that's what it was the centre of the, all the weight was pinpoint on the middle of the axle. To be honest, we could probably do with, I don't know actually. There's some blocks in there now. problem here, Lee. It's going to be rubbing on the drums. I've put a big chain all the way around it, 2 big straps.
What, the guard, you mean? Pushing against the...
Yeah, the guard's going to be pushing against the drum. Just when you thought it was over. All we got to do though is put some chain round, which we ought to chain it to the dolly anyway, really. Yeah, if I didn't have to get the chains round it, I'd rather not.
I reckon 2 scab planks. One about the thickness of a scab plank.
Partially sitting on that side.
Run down on this plank. She's off the back. And there you go, she's on the dolly. A little bit of help from Ian. We've got it strapped down now. Got the barrel chained down to the dolly. It won't without issue this job, but it never is. So let's have a little look. So yeah, she's ready to move. Hopefully we should be able to just tug this now with a winch. So it all went relatively to plan, other than the fact that where we rolled it to the front, we might have point loaded this front axle. We had all the weight on the middle, so we had 28 ton on the middle of this axle, and it's got a bit of a bow in, so we got a bit of a caster angle to her now. But I think she'll be all right. That's why we got these big wooden blocks now, so to get the weight more to the outside of the axle and stop that bending any further. But that's not going to go anywhere now. It's just a shame we bent it in the process, but I'm perfectly confident that that's going to go nowhere now, other than the other side of the yard. There's a better view of the wheel there. So what we've done now, you can see that all the weight's on these timbers on the outside and on the outside of the axle. As you can see there, she's off of her rear support, so she's fully rested on the axles now. I can get that beam cut off about there, so we can pull it away. As you can see, it's she was very close to that crane, which is why we had to swing the back end of the boiler round just to get it away from that crane, so we could pivot that up. At one point that beam was, well, it was around about here. So we had to get that beam up past and then give it a bit of a swivel. But that worked out okay in the end. I was a bit worried about that, but that was fine. So that means then, part 4 of this series, we're going to be wrapping a chain around that axle. We're going to be steaming up the labelling tractor, and we're going to be trying to winch it out with that. We've got to winch it up round the yard, up into another spot, just up the top by the shed. So you have to stay tuned for that one, and we can see what sort of trouble, and we can see what sort of trouble we can get into with that. So far, so good. So yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.